Hey, hello, and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host, Ed Charbeneau, and with me is my co-host, John Bristowe. How are you doing, John?
I'm well. How are you?
I am in a really bad thunderstorm right now, so I am trying to do my best to stay alive. As long as my internet and power stay on, we should be good. But if you
All
see me
right.
disappear, you will know why. I may run for cover, who knows? I'm watching weather alerts right now. It came in really quick. It's like one of those bad summer storms that comes out of nowhere and like blew literally everything off the deck moments before
Okay.
we started airing here on the show. So there's that. But other than that, I'm pretty good. How about you, John?
Things are fine here. I don't have the storms. Sydney is inundated with rain. We were inundated with rain a few months ago up in Queensland. So, as I like to tell people, Australia is like life on hard mode, no saves. It's either trying to flood you or provide a very wicked sunburn or kill you with venomous and poisonous things. So it's life on hard mode.
Yes, and that's why you'll see me adjusting my lighting here as well. It is extremely dark because of the cloud cover, which makes my camera go absolutely nuts with no natural light in the office. So I look like I'm under bright lights, but it's literally the opposite. It's the camera overcompensating for the lack of any light. Anyhow, we come here for the news. So let's talk about some things that are happening, John. We've got,
Sure.
let's share my screen here, and there's the good old fashioned Hall of Mirrors. Let's get that off of there. All right. Let's see here. GitLab architecture overview. Did I get the right link here, John? Is this
You did.
yours?
You
All
did,
right.
yes. So GitLab is a very popular collaboration platform. It's very much like GitHub. It's basically provides a whole bunch of services for software projects, including source control and issue management and security scanning and all kinds of nice things. And this is an article that recently was updated and has been around, but they've talked a little bit about their architecture, and I was actually quite impressed by the level of detail that they go into the architecture in this document. Now, if you're in an organization and you're wanting to do sort of a state of the union on your own architecture, this would be a good example to follow. So GitLab has a variety of parts and pieces. They use a variety of systems and tools and things of that nature in order to perform the job that they do, which is to provide software services, software as a service. And this article goes into great detail, including probably the most elaborate architectural diagram I've ever seen. But basically, it breaks down it all into various components. So this is their high-level architecture, which looks reasonable. And then you scroll down a little bit more, and you start to really discover just how detailed these components can be. So, so you can get a sense there. That scrolls left and right, by the way.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so quite elaborate, quite detailed, lots of lines. So interestingly, some of the side things that I thought were interesting was they use Mattermost as their chat client. For those who don't know, typically you see Teams or Slack. Mattermost is the little collaboration platform that could. It's probably one of the best collaboration platforms for developers. It's probably um, the most feature rich for developers targeting a client, for example. Looks pretty much like anything else, but the amount of power that it has in there is incredible. Other
Mhm.
things that I was looking at is obviously their architecture from just their scale perspective. Obviously, they need to make sure that they scale in a very big way. They utilize a lot of various services. Grafana they use for monitoring. They use uh, Prometheus for logging. They use, let's see, what else do they have here? They
Redis
utilize,
there,
yes,
cache
for
server.
their distributed database, Postgres for other databasey things. I love the names that they've given to some of their things as well. They utilize, let's see, Jaeger for tracing. So this sort of notion of distributed tracing is important, especially when you have these highly distributed systems like you do within most architectures today. So you need to be able to trace both from the beginning and to the end and back. And so tools like Jaeger, specifications like OpenTelemetry, those are really important. What they allow you to do is correlate, say, for example, this HTTP request then went to this middleware, then went to this backend database, and then back the way up. And you can use a correlation ID to flow and then use tools to view all of that stuff. So anyways, if you're looking for inspiration, or you're looking to be scared, or any one of those things, GitLab has provided an architecture of their infrastructure. So worth noting.
Interesting. I think we have another Git related article here. What comes after Git?
Yes.
What is after Git, John?
Well, Git has its own problems for sure. Yeah, we use Git extensively at Octopus, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners do. And Git is definitely could use some improvements. So Matt Rickard here wrote a little bit about, what might we see in the evolution of Git going forward. And he lists a few ideas of things that might be important or worth having as part of a collaborative source control environment, for example. So some of the ones are pretty obvious, like native package management integration, semantic diffing. Those two obviously jump out. I don't know about having atomic nature across projects, maybe. But there's other things like this, like, Git itself is pretty unusable in some respects. I mean, you push a pull request, or what are some good examples? You can cherry pick commits, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But rebasing, things like that, they don't always make sense to people. And you have to typically resort to tools like Git Kraken or something like that in order to kind of make a sense of what it is you're looking at. The branches themselves can get quite unwieldy as well. I've seen branches that are like, you're scrolling left to right now to get sense of them. So these and other various reasons why Git's fine, but it's just like we could use an improvement. So I thought this article went into some good details about that.
Yeah, I like this, the terrible UX of Git.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of commands, a lot of switches on those commands. It takes a lot to get used to if you're not using more than clone, push, pull, fetch, that sort of thing. There's a lot of stuff to do out there. So it looks like there's a whole second article related to that, which is
so
useful.
One of the biggest challenges we have at Octopus is sometimes figuring out how artifacts are generated. So sometimes you have this binary that can be produced through a variety of means. So that's another challenge there, obviously, and that speaks more to source control and all that, but in general. But yeah, exactly. This is Git. How do we use it? No idea. Just memorize these shell commands and type them in, slap on the keyboard, and you're good.
If anything goes wrong, download a fresh copy.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah, well.
MacintoshPi. Is this like a Raspberry Pi running like old school Mac?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So pretty cool. It's basically a project to try and get macOS 789 running on a Mac or on a Raspberry Pi device like this one. This is a Raspberry Pi 4. And getting it up and running, full-fledged operating system, etc. So this would be the repo to check out to do that.
How long before Apple squashes this, you think?
I don't think they care, honestly.
You'd be surprised.
Okay, fine. They care. They care a great deal.
They don't like to have fun over there, I don't think. They like to squash.
I think they have a bad rap. I think they're fine.
I mean, try building a Hackintosh these days. It's
very
difficult to do.
Hey, things are getting better. Have gotten better.
Have they?
Probably better ways.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I think so.
This is pretty cool. I know some people that were really into the actually, and we talked about this on like another show. I have like this game that I was geeking out to called Bolo. Like I
Okay.
would love to build like half a dozen of these things and throw them on machines just to play that. See if I can find a screenshot of it. If anybody in chat like knows what I'm talking about with this thing, and this is not the game.
Blue.
Spelled it wrong.
Oh,
this is it right here.
Bolo. I don't think I've heard of this.
It is
That's
awesome. Like, yeah,
That's an old.
you're like the little tanky thing right
Yeah.
here, and you drive it around with keys on your keyboard. You got to kill these machine gun turrets that will last you like into the next century. But once you destroy them, you can capture them, and like you have a build toolbar over here, so you can build turrets, and walls, and roads to move faster, and harvest trees.
So
to
it's
build
like a live
things,
a live tower defense game.
Yeah, it's kind of like a tower defense mixed with an RTS game,
Nice.
and it's
like
massively multiplayer. And this is from, I don't know, the late 80s, early 90s. And like we were doing this, you know, massively multiplayer type of a game back then.
Nice.
And I was talking about it worked off of Apple Talk. And you could also like run this over like printer ports and stuff.
Yeah,
so
why not?
my buddy, like we all had, he had literally Macs in every room of his house, including the bathroom. We all played Bolo after school and on weekends. So I'd love to like build like
on Raspberry Pis.
Set up a bunch of these emulators up, make Bolo terminals, and just play the heck out of that, man. That'd be fun.
Yes.
Very cool stuff.
Felt. Yes. So this hit my radar last week. Felt is basically a service that allows you to establish or create maps. Maps are sort of the way in which a lot of us communicate, whether it's talking about climate change or the situation in the Ukraine or trying to election data or anything. Like maps are a way of communication. And the tough thing with maps is that on the internet, you do have a number of services that you can use for things like cities and geographies, etc. But if you want to, rip, mix, and burn, so to speak, different variations of maps, it can be hard to create these. So Felt is a service that allows you to basically create these quite easily and make actually quite good-looking maps.
It's interesting. If you're in the, I never thought about this before.
Yeah, so if you're considering establishing maps, maybe you're doing a data analysis project. Maybe you want to have some freestyle approach towards drawing on a map, or if you want to take data and put overlays, etc. It can be challenging, but you can do it with like Google Maps API, etc. That stuff's fine. There's Bing Maps as well, but sometimes freehand or freestyle sort of content creation can be a bit difficult. So Felt is a service that allows you to do that.
This is like MS Paint meets Google Maps.
Okay, that's one way of putting it.
No, this is cool. Is this a free thing? Do you have to pay for it?
You sign up. I don't know what the price is, so I don't know.
I know some folks that do hiking that would probably find this really interesting.
Yeah,
they could
absolutely.
like plot hiking trails and stuff and share it with their friends and whatnot.
Very cool. Like typically you'll watch a show like, CNN or Fox News or whatever, and you'll see like, all right, we have, Bagoa, I'm making up names, I don't know. Bagoa County has, had huge forest fires or something like this, sort of thing. And so you can draw on these and then present them. This is all for basically creating maps online.
Yeah, I could see friends that are doing the hiking, like, dropping in like a video on what they're going to see while they're at the, waterfalls are here. This is what it looks like on YouTube. And then we're going to stop here for lunch. That'd be pretty cool for them. I have to share.
Yeah, the real power of this is the collaborative aspect of it. So when you create a map, you can basically have more than just yourself authoring it. So you can have people kind of collaborate on a map, and the hiking is a great example. you know.
Yeah. Very cool. So that's Felt, folks.
Felt.com.
Hey, Guy Royce is here, and he's doing a raid, and we were just talking about Redis a minute ago. So Guy Royce, he works over at Redis on their DevRel
Yes.
team. So we were just talking about how GitLab employs Redis as their cache server.
Yes. Yes, amongst other things. So yes,
amongst many other things. But
I can't tell if Felt is using Redis.
I don't know. They definitely have OpenStreetMap in here, but it's pretty impressive.
Yes. Yes. So try it out. Felt.com.
Functional Programming Jargon, the GitHub repository.
Yeah. You know, functional programming, I think you kind of feel like you're not one of the cool kids especially when someone who's like into F# or Go shows up and starts talking about all this stuff. And so this is kind of a clever resource you can use. So if you ever go to a functional programming cocktail party, you don't want to embarrass yourself, you can read up on this and figure out all the jargon. So,
I think if you've gone to a functional programming
cocktail party, you're probably in the wrong place. Yes, I know.
You've already embarrassed yourself.
Yes.
I kid, functional programming folks. It's okay to have meetups and cocktail party. I think cocktail party might be a little over the top semantically, but I'm just kidding.
So, you know, sometimes it can be a challenge, right? You're like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. And so, if you ever need to figure this out and put it into layman terms, for example, this is the repo to go check out.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff usually isn't as difficult as it sounds. They usually have just very mundane meanings.
Yes.
Stuff like higher order function and functor and all this. It's all really basic stuff once you boil down into it. Except for currying. That can be a pain sometimes.
Sure.
Currying's really not that complex either once you kind of take the wrappers off it, but it's more than just a spicy dish. Yeah. It's good in programming too.
Terrible.
I had that for lunch, by the way.
Very good.
Actually, I had curry pizza for lunch because it's leftover curry. So I put it on.
All right. There you go, folks.
Some naan bread and threw cheese on top and put it in the oven and baked it up crispy. Why not, right?
Sure.
This is the eat sleep code, the eat part of
eat sleep code. Eat part. Yes.
When I start rattling off recipes from my own concoctions here. It's not like I won MasterChef or something. There's a joke in there because I did. But anyway, defensive CSS. I've seen offensive CSS many times. I've opened up a CSS file and been very offended by what the other person had written. But what's defensive CSS?
So this is from a gentleman by the name of Ahmed Shadid. I apologize if I got your name wrong. Ahmed had written an article, I think, in December about, you know, what defensive CSS was all about. And since then, he's gone ahead and produced this website, which has about 24 tips on how to basically design your CSS in a way that is defensive, and it's kind of like defensive driving, right? You don't anticipate the guy next to you kind of swerving into you, but you're ready for it, basically. And so the same thing about UI design is that sometimes the content within which your UI is located or retained within, the content itself can bleed out. And so defensive CSS are tips and tricks on how to design in a way that allows your content to be presented in a nice way. Obviously, that's very usable, but also in a way that lends itself to be defensive. So defensivecss.dev is the website. You can
I love this. This is a really awesome set of kind of like a cookbook almost to kind of riff off the cooking that we were just talking about. Like this is like kind of like a what you can expect to happen in these situations.
Right.
Like you know, sure you've probably made a card layout before, but did you realize that photos can really
get crunched?
That? Yeah. They can get off scale and all these other things. Here's ways to fix that ahead of time, so you
Yes.
don't have
Yes.
users complaining that their
So there's
images are
there's about
stretched.
24 or so tips there, and I'm sure that Augmented will be adding more as we go.
Yeah, this is a gotcha that I ran into just a couple of weeks ago. Drove me insane. So if you don't use fractional values inside of CSS Grid, and then the screen size changes, the layout can break and like go flying outside the bounds of what you anticipated it being.
Yes.
So yeah, there's stuff in
Yeah.
here to save you a lot of time. Scroll
Yeah.
bar.
Oftentimes you'll know you've done something wrong as soon as the scroll bar appears. You're like, scroll bar.
You know, you don't account for that space, and then the scroll bar appears, it shoves everything over by like 50 pixels or something.
So I think a scroll bar, a top-down scroll bar is reasonably accepted, but a left-right scroll bar, get out of here. Left-right scroll bars, you might as well just, you might as well take your IDE and go home. So
I remember when Windows 8 came out, they tried to get everybody on the right to left scrolling gesture.
Horizontal, yeah.
Yeah, and this was like to kind of complement like tablets and their whole tile-based UI and stuff. And they went to the point where they put their website together in a way that it also scrolled content left to right, and then they enforced like scrolling up and down to scroll left and right on their website, and it about burned a hole in my brain.
Sure.
Like, you start scrolling and it's moving left and right instead of up and down on the web, and you're just like, what is happening right now? What fresh new hell did I just step into?
Sure. It's like a portal. Yeah. So there's a question on the comment saying, what site is that called? It's called Defensive CSS. So defensivecss.dev is
this is an excellent share. I bookmarked it myself.
Yay.
Speaking of amazing UX, I mean, this is here. All right.
Perfect.
That they need to put like an exception filter in screen sharing to where you can say like show everything.
I like it. It's not part of the show. It's not part of the show. We should just go with that mode the whole time.
True. This is now. Ready for the bit,
John? Spaceball.
This is now. Yeah. That was then. This is now.
Prepare to fast forward. Fast forward. All right.
Ooh. All right.
We talked about the functional programming jargon. Yep.
Oh, must have double clicked that one. I thought this was interesting. We talk about alternative. Well, I mean, depending on where you're coming from, this might be the mainstream, but to me and a lot of folks that I know that do .NET and stuff, alternative might mean Rust and Python. So we talk a little bit about Rust and Python on the show, especially like Rust in WebAssembly. And last week we talked, or not last week, but the prior week, I think we talked a little bit about Rust, WebAssembly, and Python has a Blazor-like framework being worked on, and the whole list of things goes on. And I thought this went well with the subject we've been covering. And this one is how to like interop Rust and Python.
Okay.
So maybe you're building, some WebAssembly thing in Rust, and you want to have some Python, interfacing with it, or maybe you just want, that C-like experience with Rust, and then you want to have, maybe you're making something run extremely fast and efficient, but you want to have like a shell on top of it that's running Python.
This sounds like the Simpsons reference when Homer reaches into the cupboard, he grabs a can of nuts and gum, and on the can it says "Together at last." Nuts, Python, and Rust, nuts and gum, together at last. Sorry, I love Rust. Rust is super secure, highly performant, super type rich. Like if you don't like compiler errors, Rust is not the language for you. It will take you dragging down into type safety, kicking and screaming. So anyways, Python and Rust, all right, fair enough.
So there is a C Python crate.
Yes, so crates are like the package it's the way in which we package modules in Rust.
Mm-hmm.
So C Python is the C. What is this? The C-based implementation library, and this exposes itself via bindings to Rust, if I remember correctly.
Yep. Yeah. So you get something that looks kind of like, where's the example there? You have like a vector type with a type of whatever this is, and that maps
unsigned
to
8-bit integer.
Ah, there you go. Thank you. And that maps over to Rust from Python and so on and so forth. So I thought that was pretty cool. So this was in Info World this week. How to use Rust with Python and Python with Rust. Why
Nuts
not,
and
right?
gum. Yeah.
Nuts and gum.
Sorry, I know I'm going to get trashed for saying that, but that's what it sounds like to me.
And Fuel Snubble says that Python will replace JavaScript.
Fair enough.
We can only hope.
Interesting opinion. Can only hope. Oh, man. You know, according to the Stack Overflow survey, which we talked about last week or the week prior, you know, last time I checked, JavaScript still rules the world. So.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So does WordPress, though. So what does that tell you?
And jQuery and what else?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as WordPress is around, I think jQuery is here to stay, and so is PHP.
I think IE6 is still hanging around. So there you go.
No, that one's dead, right? Didn't we kill it off last week?
We did, but you know, people still use it.
Still, somebody finds a way to reboot it on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, just like Mac. Yeah.
All right, John. This is something I know you'll love. You always complain about the VR headsets. And,
sure, don't hack my face.
Don't hack your face. So we're not going to hack your face anymore.
Hack my eyeball.
Yeah. So huge milestone as human subject wears augmented reality contact lens for the first time.
I love how they use a nice graphic for this.
Yeah.
That's not what it looks like, believe me. There's probably some like mini microcontroller off the side of the head.
So yeah, it talks a little bit about this too. And it's what's interesting here is it says 30 times more pixel density than an iPhone. I believe it if I could see it, no pun intended. Called Mojo Vision, or depending on where you're from, maybe it's Moho Vision. I guess one of the big things they had to overcome with this is they had to figure out a way to power this thing. So I get they have some way of.
I'll show you what it looks like. I'll show you what it looks like. You got this. You'll have a cable coming into your contact lens. That's what it will look like.
Yeah. So yeah, power management was one of the things.
Yes.
Included medical grade micro batteries. It's unclear.
Yeah, it's a common battery. It's a common refrain. Yeah, power.
Prototype.
Power is one of the hardest problems we have in hardware. So that will continue to be the case until we solve this problem from a chemistry perspective. So.
Yeah, actually, I was watching a really great video on YouTube about this, and we're hitting a theoretical wall with battery power, by the way. So it's more than just like figuring out how to make the power density like higher. It's the fact that if we do make the power density higher, we're setting ourselves up for a really bad situation if that thing fails. So the more power you pack into a battery, the more devastating the fail state of that battery becomes. So it's like, even if we do find a way to make, say, like a Tesla car battery hold 4 times the power it already does, if that thing careens into a brick wall, it's going to take out like the block with it. Like the amount of heat that will escape for that battery is just be a disaster. But anyway,
I love how they don't. These news articles always make me upset because they never show me what it looks like today. Don't show me the iStock photo picture of what it could look like. I don't care. Show me the person sitting in a lab with the micro. I realize someone's going to screen grab this. Someone with the microcontroller on top of their head. I want to see it. I want to see where they're at. I want to see what they're capable of. I'm okay with that. Don't show me the avatar 21, 25 version of the thing. So
let's just do a quick little research here and see if they actually have.
There you go. That's what I want to see.
Why not? Why not show that?
Yes, that's what I want to see. Show me that. Don't show me the graphic where it looks awesome. Show me the thing what it actually looks like. Okay, so I wear contact lenses. So these things look like they're far bigger than
I'd say so.
than a normal contact lens, and that's expected, right? So you have the circuit board essentially surrounding it, which is interesting. You can see how big it is. So it will look off-putting, but there's the built-in camera. This is actually an interesting design. What they've done is because of the concave nature of an eye, they've followed that concave, and it looks like they have an LED in the middle there, which would emit to the retina, and then you'd have a built-in camera there. So this is actually quite interesting. They have a couple. You can see a few capacitors there. I would imagine that they could probably get the design on this pretty good after a while. But that from a design perspective is actually quite interesting to me. I would imagine it would be quite thick as well. So
yes, this looks very thick.
So I wear contact lenses, and usually it's a lot. Thick contact lenses can be off-putting. They don't feel right. So, anyways, interesting.
Chat says wait till they put ads on it.
Yeah, I know, right? Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the battery.
Yeah, probably.
Agreed.
So that's the camera, the LED, the battery. Interesting. It isn't. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see what the actual thing looked like. So that is very interesting. That is far more interesting.
Tear coming out of his eye here. It's like it doesn't hurt at all, folks.
No,
eye wells up.
Once they're on, once contact lenses are on and they're snug, you don't even notice them. So actually, I don't think this would be so bad.
This must be the prototype that
yes,
they were powering remotely.
Yes. So actually,
board power.
So actually, I actually like this a lot more now because I've seen it. So
yeah, it looks like it's actually a real thing and it's possible.
Well, it's more than just that. It's like I understand where they're going now. It's like, okay, I get it. You're trying to miniaturize this. I like the design. You're following the concave of the eye. Good. That's good. I was picturing some wires coming out and having some kind of super microcontroller attached to your head, you know.
Yeah, so this reminds me of something that happened this weekend. I was watching this show called like The Future of Technology or something like that on Netflix.
Right.
And it's like this pie in the sky, like everything's just animated, like all the futurism gone wild stuff. And they're like, one of the episodes was like the future of buildings. And they're like, we'll have buildings made of plants and it'll be eco-friendly and the walls will be living plants and everything will be green inside. And I was just laughing hysterically at this thing. I like these things are fun to like kind of experiment, ideas with, but I hope nobody believes this is fact for 1 second.
It's like the Office 2025 videos.
Yeah. I think that's where we were with the image on the first article.
Yes.
Versus the second. But to kind of circle back to that conversation, my daughter's watching this with me, and I was like, I'm all for green technology and stuff, kid, but this is the most ridiculous garbage I've ever seen on TV. And I was like, I'll give you a real world example of it. And John, I think you might have actually been there and seen it too. Have you been to Seattle and seen the Amazon domes?
No.
The offices. Okay, they have these offices downtown in Seattle. Amazon domes. Let's see.
I'm Googling it now.
Yeah, the spheres.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. So this thing was a good idea on paper, but the humidity from the is insane, and it like it will literally rain inside this thing.
Yes.
It's not a good work environment by any stretch of the imagination. So to make a long story short, like I put on an architectural review of this building for my daughter to show her how absurd it was to think that buildings should be made of plants. They're going on and on about.
Kudos to Amazon for trying something different. That's what I would say.
Yeah. This thing is.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to work in there because you'd come in and you'd just be like, it's like you're going to.
So during the night, the humidity goes to 80% in this building.
Oh, good.
That means when it's time for work hours, they have to cool this building off to dehumidify it. So it's not by any stretch of the imagination an energy saver if you have to.
So I've been to Seattle. It's probably more wet in this bubble than it is outside in Seattle, which is quite wet to begin with. So
yeah, it is. So yeah, we had fun. I taught my daughter to be a skeptic this weekend. It was entertaining for me.
Yes.
Anyhow,
not a curmudgeon, just a skeptic.
Yes. Christian Heilman is fantastic author, by the way. And he's one of the open web guys over at Microsoft.
Yep.
He has a nice little tip blog post here on using Markdown in Visual Studio Code.
Yes.
And it can, I didn't know this, and it was just like he says, today I learned.
Yes.
Visual Studio Code does auto completion for in-page links. So basically anchors, in-page anchors.
Yes.
So if you have an H2 and you want to link from somewhere else in your document to that H2, like I think what he's doing here is like a table of contents or something like that, just linking back to like the H2 tag, that actually auto completes in the UI, within Visual Studio. That is super handy because I author a lot of things in Markdown. And when you're writing blog posts and stuff like that and using Jekyll and whatnot, this is super helpful. So
there's a ton, there's an absolute boatload of extensions available for Visual Studio Code that will generate table of contents and shortcuts, provide shortcuts, etc., etc. There's preview view. There's all kinds of things you can do with Markdown in VS Code. So one of many things that you can do.
Yeah. I don't typically write Markdown in Visual Studio. I have an editor for this. I have Markdown Monster, which is really good. But I do end up in Markdown files from time to time in Visual Studio Code. So nice to...
I'll send to the maybe I can do this in the private chat. There's a one that I use, which is Markdown all-in-one, that provides a whole boatload of features. If you're looking to do anything with Markdown, it does GitHub flavored Markdown. It does support for math operations. It does support for table of content generation. There's all kinds of things that you can do with that. So,
and we'll come back to my screen share in just a second. So Nightbot is interrupting here with some great news, breaking news.
DevReach, sweet.
DevReach is back this time because of we're still coming back from the pandemic stuff. We're going to be in Boston this year and not traveling to Europe. And it's a shame. I love Sofia, Bulgaria, but it's not making travel sense yet for us to be there. So we're doing it in Boston. It's going to be fantastic. We've got a lot of speakers lined up. So if you want to check out how to either go in person or virtually, visit telerik.com/DevReach.
Yes.
Give that a look.
I'm looking at the website right now. Julie Lerman's going to speak. That's awesome. Let's see who else is going to speak here. Speakers. Lisa, Carl, Chris, David, you. Lots of folks. Heather,
Krista
Jen,
Mars, Layla Porter.
Layla. Good. Robert, Sam.
We have a Women in .NET workshop.
Yep. Good. Love it.
All sorts of goodness.
I want to go.
Well, just register and tickets are on sale right now. Virtually, you can be there for free.
Hey.
And yeah, it'll be great.
Awesome.
So make sure y'all check that out. Get down to the harbor.
Nice.
And see DevReach. Bring your khakis. Speaking of workshops, we were just talking about a women in .NET workshop.
Yes.
Speaking of workshops, there is a workshop by the fine folks over at Microsoft on the .NET
Yes.
team. James
Yes.
Montemagno
Yes.
is one of the folks working on this, and it is a .NET MAUI workshop. So if you want a self-guided workshop, or maybe you want to take this to your meetup group or a conference or something and present it, it is up on GitHub for everybody to share, and it's like an open source thing.
Perfect.
So it's a step-by-step guide. It comes with the presentation materials for a 30-minute session and how to set up the MAUI and all that good stuff, and then builds out a small application with all the data binding features, navigating from page to page, collections and theming and all that good stuff. So
Wicked. Love it.
and I haven't walked through the workshop yet, but Monkey Finder solution sounds like we are in for something interesting. So
Yes. I like good demos.
they did this with Blazor, and there's a Blazing Pizza workshop.
Yes.
And it is excellent. So
I liked your space travel agency demo that you did.
Oh, thank
That
you.
one
Appreciate
from
that.
way back when. I thought that was a good one.
Trying to see if they have a finished.
Yeah. Friends don't let friends write Contoso demos.
To-do lists.
Yes.
Please, no more to-do
or
lists.
Recipe Finder, or yeah, exactly. We've done them all.
Don't call your to-do list Tour of Heroes and expect me to be impressed either.
Yes.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, this is apparently what you're building.
Okay.
I haven't built it, but it looks like they're on the same track with what they did with the Blazor stuff. So there's a finished folder too, which has the full solution. If you don't want to actually like go through each step and you want to see what it looks like before you start, you can go straight to the end and check out the full
that's another.
solution.
We talked a little bit about Git and the sort of evolution of Git. With branches, you wouldn't need that finished folder in the actual main branch, but I understand why they did that. So
I completely understand why they did that, because keeping everything in branches gets really hectic really fast. I've tried to keep these things in branches, and keeping all the branches synced is really hard. Like when you get to part 6 and then you modify something in part 0 that affects all of the other ones, then you're like, shoot, you have to go through and like each one of them manually like cherry pick things in, and it's really distracting from what you're trying to do.
Good times.
Yeah, but this is also nice because you can jump into like the folder, kind of like this. Boom, we'll hit the old dot key here.
Yep.
And in Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code, you can click on a little button up at the top up here, and it will drop down basically all of the solutions that are in the directory.
Yes.
And you can just jump from part to part really fast with that drop down, and it's just kind of inherently built into Visual Studio. So
nice.
that's a thing. Speaking of workshops, little
it's the segue show.
Shameless plug here. This afternoon, in about let's see, about an hour, 2 hours 15 minutes from now, I will be on the Manning Twitch channel. So if you go to twitch.tv/Manning Publications, you'll hit follow on that. And I am gonna do a session on Blazor components, and I have a live project with which is kind of like a workshop, but it's more of a challenge than a workshop. So workshop kind of guides you through step by step, like they do in the .NET workshop, and they're like, here's part 1, do exactly this in this order, and you have every single step, clearly outlined for you to follow. The way a live project works with Manning is I wrote a workshop, but I left out some things very cleverly. So you need to do some research to figure out how to build them the right way. So that might mean like, using some reference material, looking at a book, watching a video, that sort of thing. And what it kind of mimics is on-the-job training. So, you get hired in junior level on a project, and you have to build certain pieces of this infrastructure. And,
I'm with you.
There might not be written directions all the way through to the end on how to do all of the steps. So you might have to improvise a little. So that's the way the live projects on Manning work. My live project gets released soon. I don't have a date quite yet, but it will be within the next week or so here. And I'm giving kind of an overview of Blazor and components and things. So when the live project ships, you'll be able to go get that and check it out.
Nice.
Alrighty. Windows we got a lot of stuff this week, John. We took a week off. So. First of all, like I got to give props to people with really cool names. When your last name is Cinnamon, I mean that's pretty slick. Like
awesome.
Can't make that up.
Chuck Steak.
So Kayla Cinnamon over at Microsoft wrote about the latest Windows terminal release. So they're improving upon the new Windows terminal. I say new because in the grand scheme of things, it's like brand new still to me.
Sure.
Terminal's been around for an eternity, and like, what is it, like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something? Windows, I want to say it was like mid Windows 8. They started shipping a new terminal. And they're still making improvements on this new terminal. So there's new stuff coming. This is in preview right now. I guess you can get on a preview build for this. Keyboard selection, mark mode. So yeah, you can, with a keyboard, you can do this easily with a mouse, but with a keyboard, you can navigate beginning and end and kind of trim sections of text out, scroll marks, setting that. I guess you can set these things via JSON to enable them if you want to check them out. There's a bunch of
interesting. I'm just watching some of the animations here. This looks quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, it's some power user stuff here.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it.
Anything to make the command line faster and easier.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about folks like myself who are writing CLIs. I'm like, how do I take advantage of that, and do it in an elegant way? So CLIs are becoming a bit hot again, especially terminal UIs, and so I think it will be interesting to see how features like this can be quickly leveraged by folks who are writing CLIs, especially CLIs that are multi-platform, like ones based in Go, for example. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to leverage these features quickly. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, there's also some new color schemes. It has theme
magenta, of course. Why not?
And you can
brighter the better.
Pretty colorful terminal here. And
I was going to say,
you can customize like CPU usage, all that stuff being displayed. It's a pretty cool little script that they added to make that happen.
Yeah, my terminal looks like the blackest of the black terminals, I guess, just because I don't want, when it's dark and it's late, I don't want any light. So
I talked to a friend of mine, Jonathan Denelko, about 2 weeks ago. On Twitch for an Eat Sleep Code interview podcast, which I will ship that on SoundCloud probably tomorrow. I've been trying to get those out on Thursday, so I'll ship that on Thursday. If you haven't heard me talking to JD yet, he's a brilliant .NET guy. He blogs quite often. Just really nice dude in general. He wrote about hiding cyclomatic complexity in your code. It's an interesting topic. Cyclomatic complexity is like it's one of those things you should keep an eye out for. And in Visual Studio, there's actually an analyzer built in. If you don't have it enabled, you should check it out. And what it does, it gives you a score based on kind of how many times your code branches. And if the complexity is over a certain score, you should look at refactoring what you're doing. And he walks through, how this works in Visual Studio, why it's important, how to kind of deal with the methods when they get these high cyclomatic complexity scores.
Sure.
And a lot of times it's switch statements are really bad for this. You want to refactor this stuff out if you can. Put things into separate functions. The higher that score goes, you can see the maintainability index starts to shrink along with the complexity going up. And then if you're able to shrink it, then your code becomes just that much more readable and maintainable. At least it should, unless you're doing something really unless you're gaming the system somehow. You shove everything in a function called do it, then maybe not. But if you're doing things the right way, you can knock down the complexity of your code and make it more reliable, maintainable, and readable.
Yeah, I think it also needs to be said, the goal is not to aim for one across the board. It's not like code coverage it's even not like code coverage isn't 100% code coverage isn't also a goal to strive for all the time. So there will be cases where you will have to have complicated branching within a function, and that's fine. That's okay.
Yep. There's things you can do to mitigate some of those like crazy branching things too. Like there's different patterns that you can use.
Sure.
Command patterns is a really good one. Builder patterns, another good one. These take a lot of the ifing and branching techniques out and replace them with kind of a mediator or controller, for lack of a better term, that can go through. And
libraries can also help.
Yeah, libraries can help. That's a good one, John. So if you haven't checked out Jonathan's blog, you can find it at Denelco Web. And again, we'll publish that podcast here tomorrow on SoundCloud if you want to listen to what we chatted about.
Cool.
So it's nice to see he's back to blogging again. And then let's see here. It's another great blogger that I like to follow, Khalid. He works over at JetBrains, and he blogs really frequently and tweets a lot of great examples and advice.
Yep.
So if you get a chance, get over to his website or follow him on Twitter, and he'll post links to this stuff. So he's talking about ASP.NET Core minimal APIs and Fluent Validation. So mixing validation on the server with Fluent Validation. One thing that's really cool about Fluent Validation is, first of all, it's this nice readable format. I really like this. Data annotations are neat too. I'm sure there's ways you could mix and match these as well. But what's nice is you get a nice named validator that you can then easily see what it is up to with its rules. So that's Fluent Validation in a nutshell.
Yeah, they almost look like unit tests.
Exactly. And the thing that makes this really nice is you can use these validators on the server. You can also use them on something like Entity Framework and validate data going into a database. And with Blazor, you can use the same Fluent validations on your client code, to validate forms and stuff like that. So to see it mixed with minimal APIs is really nice. So another great blog post by Khalid.
Sweet.
Finally, out of my pay grade, but I thought it'd be interesting to mention, is the CERN Large Hadron Collider.
Yes.
Is doing some new tests this week.
Yes.
They found 3 new, quote, exotic particles.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember the name of them, like a tetraquark. It's in here. Like I said, this is way above my pay grade, but still interesting nonetheless. They're looking for the essence of like dark matter and
Yeah, they just announced they're going to start a 5-year lab experiment, trying to prove some experiments around the basically the foundations of dark matter. So
Yeah, I saw a really interesting what do you call it? Like a docu series on this one time, and they were going into details on like how they can use the results of some of this stuff to even prove or disprove the multiverse, which I thought was interesting.
oh, okay.
So they're like try to put this in terms that even I understand. Like I said, this is stuff that's just way above my head. But there's a certain weight to the properties of all of these things, and if they finally can, smash all these things apart and weigh them individually, if there's, I can't remember if it's more or less weight, as if they're all in pieces rather than a whole, they can figure out like if some of these things are going in and out of other universes, like quantum physics and all that good stuff. And they can kind of
I love your description. I
know it's terrible, right? It was really good and scientific documentary I watched.
Come back.
But yeah, what they were saying is if the particles exist in other dimensions, then they won't be able to measure the totality of the weight based on the number of pieces that they have or something like that.
Yeah, you also have the observer problem associated with some of this stuff as well. So,
there's a lot of crazy stuff that they're trying to do with this, and if just watch what they've been up to.
It's the best way to understand it is it's a big ring. It's about a few kilometers at least in circumference, and it's surrounded by magnets. And all they're doing is they're just basically taking particles and accelerating them almost to the speed of light, and then smashing them together, and then seeing what spits out. And they have detectors all over the place, and that's how they discovered the Higgs boson about a decade ago. And the God particle, as people referred to it back in the day, which are basically the building blocks of things like protons and electrons. So
the ad couldn't be more appropriate.
Yeah.
I was trying to find the thing that I watched. This is probably a version of the thing that I watched. IGN News covering it.
Oh, okay.
CERN could prove parallel universes. Like that was probably a synopsis from the documentary that I watched.
I think what happens here is like Rory here. I'm not making fun of Rory, but Rory probably sat down, or maybe didn't, sat down with one of the scientists and said, "All right, so what are you guys doing?" And it was like blah blah blah, and then the scientist maybe mentions dimension, the word dimension, and then Rory here runs with that and says, "Wait a minute, what do you mean by dimension? Do you mean like DC dimension? Sort of like Marvel Comics dimension?"
No,
and then the scientist is like, "Well, no, but he's like, well, let's go with that," and then they run with that, sort of thing. So anyway,
there is a test that they're doing. I probably explained it very poorly from a video that I watched several years ago on Netflix.
Okay.
So there's
we gotta
like
change the name. We gotta change the
name
of this show to Two Dumb Guys Explain Science.
Exactly.
Two morons. Yeah.
I was trying to remember how they worded it exactly, and it's not gonna happen. I'm not a scientist.
All right.
But you can find it if you just search for those terms that I searched for. CERN prove multiverse. But there's theories on just kind of equating all of the bits that they keep finding with these collisions. And if things don't add up to a certain value, then they can make they can theorize whether,
yes,
that there's, these particles must exist in another universe because they're not within the test results after they've, just divided these things completely out into their separate pieces. There's still missing pieces. Those missing pieces must be elsewhere.
Very good.
So very interesting stuff. Keep an eye on it so you can poorly describe it to the rest of your friends when you
at a bar. That's right.
When you read it.
You know what I heard? I heard it's going to create like a black hole. It's going to suck up the Earth. You know, that's the one I remember people talking about back in the day.
Yeah, it's the end of times, folks. That's what you should be getting from all of that. It's the end of times. They're gonna do this experiment, and then the world is going to collapse into a black hole. So be afraid.
Perfect.
Anyhow, we're out of time, John. I'll see you all very soon. Take care, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.